Ladies and gentlemen, earlier this morning I did a segment on a man who was sentenced, convicted, and sentenced. No, not sentenced yet, sorry. With Marjorie Taylor Greene, he was indicted and then pled guilty. And he now faces prison time in New York for leaving very, very, basically criminal messages to Marjorie Taylor Greene, okay, saying that he wants to essentially end her life. Okay, this is taking place in a country where there's 24/7 negative media coverage against the Republican Party, against conservatives. We had Kavanaugh, whose life was almost taken and ended by a deranged human being. All people who were wonderful, morally superior, highly educated, almost certainly liberal Democrats, or vote alongside that political spectrum. All right. Now you have NBC Connecticut man convicted of threatening to end U.S. Representative Jake LaTurner. The life of U.S. Representative Jake LaTurner. Okay, so you have Jake LaTurner, Washington Times, Kansas man convicted of saying he was going to end GOP congressman's life. And Yahoo News, man found guilty on felony charge of saying he was going to end U.S. Republican Representative Jake LaTurner's life. There's a Los Angeles Times article. There are numerous other articles. The Topeka Capital Journal. Individual found guilty in saying he was going to end Jake LaTurner's life. Of course, I'm speaking in an algorithmically friendly tone because I want to talk about this and be able to explain what's going on. When they talk about, a study was done or this federal agency shows that all of these atrocities are committed, and then it's just a small number of atrocities committed on the left. They're manipulating statistics like they do with a whole bunch of topics, okay? It's easy to manipulate statistics. You can assign a motive towards somebody who's just simply snapped and say, oh, that is part of a euphemism that is linked to conservative thought. These are people going after Republican Congress people. These are individuals that are going after Republicans in Congress. Not a word from media. If, God forbid, you had the same with people getting convicted, indicted, and convicted, going after top Democrats, you wouldn't hear the end of it from media. You wouldn't hear. Already they point to one day in January and ignore an entire summer of $1 to $2 billion in property damage, which is never included. The 14,000 arrests are never included within studies showing of violence and mayhem on the right. And so I don't think it's good or just or right if anyone commits this type of behavior. Okay? When I was on the left, I had an issue I had to deal with and went to the police department. They said, arm yourself. So I did. But this is why Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to arm herself. This is why Republicans want to arm themselves in Congress. Okay? Here you have an NBC article. A federal court jury convicted a Kansas man who insisted that a threat he made was a message from God. Against Representative Jake LaTurner was a message from God. So hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen, every day at 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. Every day at 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. on this channel. Expect videos forever. And I thank you so very, very much for the viewers who are waiting at 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. means a great deal to me and helps grow the channel tremendously. We're over 203,000 subs, and we're on our way to 210,000. It's because of you. To my new Patreons, thank you. My Patreon link is below if you want to support my work. Go to hagoodman.com to read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post, The Federalist, and other publications, and become part of a newsletter there. And The super thanks is below next to the like and the share buttons. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel. I will have more videos there. I've been running out of steam with that channel. I'm trying to always keep working on H.A. Goodman here and also H.A. Goodman's other channel, but I just run out of steam. But I will go ahead and continue with videos there as well. I should have a live stream tonight later this evening, so please go ahead and watch the channel for the live stream. Ladies and gentlemen, when you hear these, I'm not going to point to any data specifically, okay? Because it's a contentious, or I should say it's a topic that if you address, if you look at the numbers that they talk about, well, obviously all the mayhem and chaos and violence is coming from conservatives. This is not true. This is not true. They're pointing to one day in January, okay? They're ignoring an entire summer, and I support why people demonstrated. I support why people demonstrated and why I support the cause of why people peacefully demonstrated, okay? But there is no comparison. You didn't have conservative groups forcing cities to go into curfews. You didn't have conservative groups or conservative-leaning voters clash with police in Portland and other cities, and that was a whole summer. Again, I support why people were demonstrating peacefully. I support the cause. But you can't ignore the reality. The reality is that Democrats, media, the entire American political system will say, well, CNN journalists, for example, will say fiery but mostly peaceful, with the building in flames behind the person. Okay? They'll point to that one day, and they'll ignore a great number of examples where you had linked to 14,000 arrests, according to Wikipedia. $1 to $2 billion in property damage, that was just insured. The uninsured damages, who knows how many hundreds of millions or billions. Okay, $1 to $2 billion in property damage, according to insurance companies. Okay, and then you had a book written in defense of looting. CNN, MSNBC, The Washington Post, and The New York Times made it that Trump was the authoritarian. So when he spoke out against the mayhem and chaos, he was just an authoritarian. And you have Kavanaugh, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jake LaTurner. That's just 3 Republicans in the past, I would say, 5 months or so, less than that, who could have had their lives lost. And there's likely more. I mean, doing research for this, I said, okay, Marjorie Taylor Greene, wait a second, I did remember another Republican, but see, it's not mainstream. If a Democratic leaning person is convicted or indicted and goes after a Republican and threatens to end the Republican's life, you do not get the media, the media focus. You don't get that. Even with Kavanaugh, they were defending what took place, the left. Then you had churches, then you had buildings torched to the ground by left-leaning groups. And so it's not good when any side does it. It's not good. But you have this, when they talk about rhetoric, every single time an atrocity takes place, oh, the rhetoric, it's rhetoric. And then they blame, individuals who just speak their mind about topics that have nothing to do with the atrocity. You can agree or disagree with a whole bunch of things in life. That doesn't mean that your words influence a person to commit an atrocity. However, an entire media apparatus constantly you can't sue the media for these people threatening Republicans. But what you can do is look and say, okay, there's hypocrisy. When deranged people go after Republicans, nobody says anything. Nobody points it back to the rhetoric of the Democratic Party. When deranged people do something atrocious, and let's say that the media can spin it into, oh my God, this is a political issue. They point directly to rhetoric. So rhetoric and words and ideas are directly to blame for when Democrats can spin it, but rhetoric, words, and ideas are never to blame when Republicans almost have their lives lost. And it is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. I was the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post, and the unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters, according to the Washington Post. I saw when they leveled the media at Bernie Sanders, they turn on a dime. It's a 180 degrees. So it's about being in the middle. And then you had a Bernie Sanders supporter go and that was the individual who almost ended Steve Scalise's life. He was a left-leaning person. So media will like to paint atrocities as directly the result of conservative thought, when there are endless examples, unfortunately, a great number of examples that point to left-leaning thought influencing somebody or possibly having influenced a person. It's out of bounds. Nobody talks about that. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot blame somebody, or you cannot blame a political viewpoint for influencing a madman. Okay? You have to just arm yourself, or if you are an American citizen, the Second Amendment, and you have a pristine background, you can go ahead and obtain protection yourself. You don't need a security detail in this country. That's what, when I went to the police department, when I had an issue that I dealt with years back, they said, look, you know what, arm yourself. And I did. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe to this channel. You could protect yourself because you have the Second Amendment, and you're able to do so. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. Be here today for the live stream. Thank you.